Hello, I'm Bill Fox, and this program is about East Brunswick. For the past few months, I'm sure that many of you have been aware that there's been some controversy surrounding the proposed widening of the New Jersey Turnpike. What we're going to do in the next few minutes is discuss with officials of the Turnpike and representatives of East Brunswick the various issues related to that controversy and some background concerning the Turnpike and the citizen involvement locally. My guests are Ed Cohn, who is chairman of the Citizens Ad Hoc Committee on the Turnpike Widening, which was formed by the council and by the mayor some months ago. Next to him is Susan Caspin, who's a member of the committee. Next to her is Bill Flanagan, who is executive director of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. And next to Bill Flanagan is Joseph Bo Sullivan, who is chairman of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority Commissioners. I'd like to start off, Chairman, by asking you to tell me and others a little bit about the Turnpike Authority and its history and its functions and something about how it operates.
The Turnpike Authority was created in the very late 1940s by then Governor Driscoll as an independent authority in an attempt to respond to some of the transportation requirements of the state that had really been neglected in the 30s during the Depression and during the war years. And Governor Driscoll at the time felt that didn't know where he was going to get the money to build a new road and try to keep pace with the growth that New Jersey was experiencing. Therefore, he and the legislature created the Turnpike Authority and gave the authority the power to issue bonds and charge tolls. At that time, the authority went out and built the first mainline turnpike from the Delaware Memorial Bridge up to the northern sector near the George Washington Bridge and issued bonds to do it. And when they opened the road, charged tolls in order to pay off the bond. We've been operating continuously since then as an independent authority. We have today 5 commission members who are all appointed for 5-year terms by the governor. Terms do not overlap. And one of the commissioners is chosen, in my case, by the governor to serve as the chairman. As we well know, the Turnpike Authority's headquarters are located here in East Brunswick, and we maintain a full-time staff, which is headed by our executive director, Mr. Flanagan. And we employ approximately 1,800 people, in addition to which we operate a state police division, Troop D, which is responsible for security and patrol. What we try to do, what our mandate is, and our mandate is really closely arranged by the legislature. It was originally broader, but cut down and narrowed quite a bit following the Garden State Parkway's building of the Arts Center. The legislature at that time said, what's the Turnpike going to build, a stadium or what have you? So our mandate is to build, maintain, construct, and operate a safe and efficient highway and charge tolls for it. We do not and have never not and are not allowed to receive money from the federal government or from the state. So all our revenues for operations come from tolls. For major capital projects, we have to go out and borrow the money from the private sector on the bond market. We've had several widenings in the past trying to keep pace with traffic. We built the Westerly Extension, which really enabled the Sports Authority to be built up in the north end, maintain service areas, and basically try to provide the motoring public in New Jersey and those who are using our state for commerce and pleasure with a safe and efficient roadway. And those are really the keys to what we do, safety and efficiency. In 1985, our fatality rate was the lowest of any multiple-use roadway in the world. Our accident rate is one of the lowest there is, and we stress safety and we stress efficiency. We think that we're charging you money to get on the road, and we think that for the money you're paying us, you're entitled to know approximately when you get on what time you'll be able to get off. And when we fail in that duty, we feel as if we're failing in our general mandate.
I know there's some people in the state, certainly in East Brunswick, who feel that the authority is too independent. What are the constraints? What are the checks and balances on the authority?
Well, the first and probably most important financial check is the fact that we are not owned by the state. We are owned by the private sector, by bondholders. The bondholders have trustees of the bonds, and they have attorneys, and they watch what we do to make sure that we operate the roadway in an efficient manner financially. Politically, we're subject to the direct control of the governor. Each month at our monthly meeting, the minutes of the meeting are submitted to the governor, and he has a period of time with which either to approve or veto those minutes. Anytime we want a toll increase or change our revenue structure, we must also get the permission not only of the governor, but also the state treasurer and the state comptroller. When it comes to a project such as the one we're talking about now, we are subject to the same controls as any other agency. We must comply with the Department of Environmental Protection's mandates with respect to the environment. We must, and although in some cases we're not always subject to federal controls because we don't take federal funds, in cases of wetlands and stream crossings and the like, we're also subject to federal jurisdiction. So there's quite a few. I know some people think we do as we please, but actually there's a lot of people looking over our shoulder all the time.
All right, Ed Cohen, tell me about the ad hoc committee. What is it? What does it do?
The ad hoc committee was appointed by the mayor and the council to give them guidance as to how to proceed with regard to the proposed widening of the New Jersey Turnpike. It is a 17-person committee. We have a budget of $100,000, of which $71,000 was allocated. We have, with the council's approval, hired an environmental consultant to study air pollution, a traffic consultant to study the traffic data, a noise consultant to study the noise, and an environmental attorney to give us guidance with regard to proposed or potential litigation and procedural matters. We have progressed to the point where we do have the reports from the environmental consultants, and we also have, our attorney has seen that the procedural way the Turnpike is approved has moved towards the federal approvals. So we're in now to the federal approval cycle.
Ed, tell me a little bit about how it works with $100,000. Does the council just send the committee, here's $100,000, go spend it, or are there some checks and balances on it?
As I said to you, the council has only appropriated $71,000, and they've done this with about 7 or 8 resolutions, carefully questioning the committee on what the funds were going to be used for, how they were allocated, and parceled them out as we made progress over the past 9 months.
I know that there are some people in East Brunswick who feel, particularly those who commute to New York, who feel that the Turnpike needs to be widened. And I've had people tell me, and as I'm sure you've had people tell you, well, why are we spending this money? Why are you spending my tax money to do this? And when it's to benefit just a few people who live next to the Turnpike, and I go to New York every day, and I really want it widened, and you're holding up the whole thing, and it's a bad thing that you're doing. Why do you think why is it in the interest of East Brunswick that this committee exists and we do what we've done?
Well, to answer your first part of your question, the committee is not holding up, or the township is not holding up the northern portion of the section. It happens that the 2 sections are parceled together, and therefore the Federal Review Committees, the Corps of Engineers, Coast Guard, Federal Highway Authority, will look at the entire proposal as one unified section. And therefore, we are only interested in the section that goes from Exit 9 to Exit 8A south of East Brunswick. As to regards to what the actual involvement of the Turnpike is with the citizens of East Brunswick, in the Turnpike's draft environmental statement, they talk about 400 some odd homes, 437 homes that are over the federal guidelines with regard to noise. Our noise consultant has told us that the number is considerably greater than the 437. So we're not just talking about 3 or 4 homes that are next to the Turnpike. We're talking about an environment that the Turnpike produces in this particular town. And I venture to say that if you are somewhere about a mile or even a mile and a half away from the Turnpike, on a quiet night, you can hear the trucks on this Turnpike. So we are not a committee that is only interested in the citizens who have adjacent homes to the Turnpike.
Okay, Bill Flanagan, why don't you tell us some about how the authority came to decide that the widening was necessary and where it stands at the moment?
Surely, Mayor. The Turnpike Authority and the Turnpike itself competes with so-called free roads in the area. Actually, we refer to them as tax roads. I'm sure you've seen the bumper stickers on Route 18 which say, as a matter of fact, I do own the road. Mm-hmm. And of course, all citizens do own the roads, but over the years they've been referred to as free roads, and people accept that versus a toll road. Well, the Turnpike charges a fee to travel any number of given miles, and all that the Turnpike can sell for that fee is safety and service. So in the operations department of the Turnpike, there's an obligation to keep the authority informed upon the future needs of the road so that traffic does not become unsafe and create unsafe conditions, and so that travel does not become undependable. And so that committee, I'm sure you've seen evidence of its work in the past and most recently in expanding interchanges, adding numbers of toll booths, expanding parking lots at the various service areas. And it's the same committee that reports to the chairman and commissioners and myself. And several years ago, they voiced a very serious concern that given the growth of traffic on the Turnpike, that the Turnpike at a particular time could run out of capacity. The traffic could become undependable and create unsafe conditions. So in making that recommendation to myself, and I bring it to the chairman and the commissioners then authorized me to contact the best available professionals in the field to determine, number one, the cost of widening a turnpike, and number two, the feasibility of widening the turnpike. They then came back with those studies, and those studies took a considerable period of time, and there were traffic and revenue studies, there were engineering cost studies, and when those figures came back and that material was made available to the board and myself, we then approached the financial community to determine whether or not this road was feasible, whether it could be paid for. And having completed those studies, we then decided that it was a viable project, then hired the best available professionals in the consulting field for environment. And we already had the traffic experts on hand. And these consultants, although the Turnpike pays their fee, they work for the benefit of their reputation in the financial community. These are the people who go to Moody's and Standard & Poor's and say, yes, we believe or we don't believe that this is a viable project. That determines, in your experience with that in your own bond issues, the rating agencies put a rating on the bonds. If the rating is a high one, the bonds sell well, and they sell for a favorable interest rate. If it's a wishy-washy recommendation, then you're going to pay more interest, as you know from your own experience. However, our rating received the highest possible rating that the rating agencies could bestow on a project, and so we move forward. And in the project, we will be seeking to widen the Turnpike in its northern end, that is the western leg up through the meadows. As it comes down toward Newark Airport, which is already 12 lanes from there south to Interchange 9, we would be adding a single lane until we got to Woodbridge. And there would be no expansion in between the Woodbridge area, that would be Interchange 11, and Interchange 9 in East Brunswick. And then the present expanded Turnpike would be carried from southward from East Brunswick down to Interchange 8A. And after having been involved with the township, with the ad hoc committee, with yourself, with the members of your council, with the DOT, the determination was made to scale the project back from the anticipated 12 lanes, that is adding 3 in each direction to the present 3 in each direction. Scale it back to 2 lanes in each direction. And that's where we are now.
Okay, I want to come back to that in just a minute, but I'd like to ask a couple of general questions before doing that. Is the traffic, you indicated the volume of traffic is increasing. Is that traffic principally New Jersey traffic, or is it interstate traffic?
The opportunity to do traffic interviews on the Turnpike, and it was a very extensive study, indicated that only 11% of the total traffic is through traffic. In the rest of the traffic, all of the trips either originate and end in New Jersey, or they originate some other place and terminate in New Jersey, or vice versa. But only 11% of the total traffic on the Turnpike was found to be through traffic.
So it's not the interstate or the absence of I-95, for example, in terms of true interstate travel that's increasing?
No, only for 11% of it. That's not to say, however, that the trips which originate in New Jersey and vice versa originate elsewhere coming up the Turnpike would not have been using 95 if 95 had been built.
And I'll ask another question, which either you or the chairman may want to respond to. I know one of the concerns, and this is outside of your authority, but maybe you know or have some ideas about what's going to happen. One of the concerns in the northern area is, all right, so you widen the Turnpike and the traffic moves freely, but then you leave the Turnpike and you hit the Lincoln Tunnel or you hit the Holland Tunnel and one of the Hudson River crossings. How does the improved flow on the Turnpike itself and the problems that are being experienced in crossing the Hudson River, how do they relate?
Well, Hudson River crossings are a severe problem simply because there are so few of them in terms of lanes. You've got the George Washington Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, the Goethals and Verrazano bridges, and that's as far as you get. One of the most important things which we see ourselves doing in improving our service and our ability to service our patrons is the building of additional parking rides and the ability to move buses in a more efficient manner. People that ride buses tell me that the biggest problem they have is that the Turnpike is backed up and they'd love to be able to get on the parking ride here in East Brunswick and get a nice, safe through trip into the city. And those, I'm sure, are some of the people, Mayor, that have talked to you about why don't you expand the Turnpike, because they've talked to me too. So we like to refer to ourselves as the concrete and asphalt rails that the mass transit of buses rides upon. So we have an obligation also to mass transit to provide that service for the buses. In addition, we have planned, in conjunction with New Jersey Transit and New Jersey Department of Transportation, additional facilities whereby we'll be providing park and rides at future rail stations that they hope to build in this Northeast corridor. So we're trying very hard to help on our side of the river. Interesting article in today's paper by the mayor of New York saying that they're considering rather restrictive rules on automobile and truck traffic in New York City. So that all of us on this side of the river, including in addition to the Port Authority and the planning people in New York, are all working on this problem simultaneously. And we feel our best contribution, in addition to the park rides and access to trains, is to keep the Turnpike moving smoothly and safely.
Now, Bill, I know there was some controversy about the timing of the announcement with regard to the widening between 8A and 9. When the project was discussed early last year, it was to go from, I believe, from 9 northward, and then all of a sudden there was an announcement that it was going to go from 8A to 9, and that change, I think, surprised people. How did that come about?
In the very preliminary studies, I'm talking about now the traffic and revenue studies, the very preliminary studies did indeed indicate that the widening would occur from 9 northward. And if you've noticed in my description of the project, I said there would be no widening between number 9 in East Brunswick and 11 in Woodbridge. The original plan was to also add a lane in each direction to that particular section. Those were the preliminary studies, and then when they got out to do the very definitive studies, they found that the widening was unnecessary in that area, and it was greatly needed south of Interchange 9. You know, in the meantime, I had answered mail from 2 or 3 individuals in East Brunswick, perhaps about a year prior to that, and I very honestly was going on the preliminary studies and assured those folks that, yes, there would be a widening at some time in the future, but it would not happen now. And it was very embarrassing to me, and I thought of those 2 or 3 people who had written, asking me for an opinion, and I gave them something that was wrong, and I felt bad about that. However, to answer your question, that is how the particular portion from 9 southward to 8A was added.
Okay. Susan, perhaps you could talk some about the concerns that the ad hoc committee has identified and with regard to that specific widening.
Well, we're very concerned because we're already, I live about a block away, so I could speak for the people who are within a block of the Turnpike. We're tremendously impacted by the highway already in terms of noise, air pollution, even safety. We have a 90-foot buffer zone from your highway to our backyards. And you propose to move this highway 28 feet from our backyards. You're moving it out 62 feet. When you say it'll be a 2-lane widening, you'll really have that extra lane there. It won't be used, perhaps paved over for a year or so, but it will be there. And if a chemical truck, for instance, is involved in an accident, we could have a mini Chernobyl. We really can when the gases are released. And I'm the mother of 3 children. We have schools in the area. It's very scary. We know about the particulate emissions that are cancer-causing. Nitrous oxide is emitted by trucks. I don't even know what effect nitrous oxide has, but I'm sure it's terrible. In New York City, trucks can't idle their engines for more than 3 minutes because of these emissions. And I'm right by the Joyce-Kilmer service area, and trucks run their engines all night. I really don't know what effect that is going to have on us in future years, but it's scary as I've really been finding out about these health hazards now with our proximity to the Turnpike. So with additional lanes, it's really a scary situation.
And are there concerns in addition to the air pollution concerns?
Well, the sound impact already you're about 13 decibels over federal highway standards. Federal EPA standards, you're about 20 decibels over. And with the widening, we can assume another 3 or 4 decibels. It really will be an incredibly loud situation. And sound barriers might mitigate it by 10 decibels. That is might. There are a lot of factors, the prevailing winds, the trees, whatever. So maybe it'll only be 6 or 7 decibels, and it'll still be quite loud. And, okay, you could live with the sound, but we also, it's another part of the impact. It's another impact you will have and you will be extending to us. And we also feel that right now the need for the widening is really based solely on projections, not current need. We're about between level B and C service. And if we don't have to be impacted, why do it now? Why not wait 20 years, see what happens? Maybe 1 lane in each direction would be sufficient, and it wouldn't bring the highway that much closer to our homes. That's what we're asking, is at least to consider an alternative to this widening.
All right, let's go to the chart, and I know that you mentioned, Bill, that the project has been reduced, and maybe, Bo, you would, if you could, describe that reduction and what it means.
The top part of the chart shows the original plan, which indicates 3 lanes on the intersection and 3 lanes on the outer section. This configuration is what we refer to as a dual-dual.
Now, stop there for a minute.
Sure.
Tell me about dual-dual. What does that mean?
Dual-dual.
What does it accomplish?
All right. What dual-dual means is that we have in the northbound direction, for example, on this original proposal, 3 outer lanes and 3 inner lanes separated by a safety barrier going in the same direction.
And why would you do that instead of just having 6 lanes?
Okay, and the reason for doing that is to separate the passenger car vehicles from the trucks and heavy vehicles and buses. That's done for a safety reason, so that what we're trying to do is eliminate the mixing of those two types of traffic, which anyone who has driven on the Turnpike knows that it can be troublesome when you can get boxed in by trucks, and I know people get nervous when they're driving right alongside of trucks or trucks are right behind them. So this has been proven to be an extremely safe way of separating traffic, and it's an efficient way of moving the traffic. The other thing we're doing here on both plans, regardless of lanes, if you'll notice, is we're maintaining full shoulders so that if there's an emergency repair or breakdown or flat tire, you don't have to cross over 6 or 8 lanes. If you've ever been to California and driven some of the freeways and had the misfortune to have a flat tire, it's really taking your life in your hands to try to get over to the side if you're in the wrong lane. The lower section here shows the scaled down plan, which maintains the dual configuration insofar as we have 3 lanes in the inner sections for passenger vehicles. However, we've scaled it down on the outer for 2 lanes for trucks and other heavy vehicles. In both cases, we are maintaining the full right-hand shoulders of 12 feet in case there's a breakdown and in case a vehicle has to pull over and get out of the way. We are a full-shouldered highway, one of the very few in the world. Even on our bridges, we have shoulders, which we consider to be an extremely safe configuration. I should add, too, some people criticize the Turnpike as being a boring road to drive because you can see so far in advance. That's called a long sight line, and we do that intentionally because a truck traveling at 55 miles an hour approaching an accident has a difficult time stopping on a dime. And the further away in the driver's sight we can show problems coming up, the better chance we have of eliminating problems. And for example, if you could imagine this as a hill with no further sight line, a truck or a car coming over that hill and finding on the other side an accident or a flat, or for that matter, some pedestrian wandering around. Be very, very difficult, if not impossible,
Or
to stop.
cows, as
Or
happened
cows,
the
as
other day.
happened, yeah.
Now, in this new configuration, is this narrower than the original proposal, or is it just less pavement?
It would be less pavement.
Is the area of construction smaller, or is it the same width?
Well, of course, with less pavement, the area of construction would be smaller.
Okay.
However, it would be prudent at this time, rather than to go through another upheaval 7, 8 years from now, whenever the additional lane would be needed, to repeat the process once again. The wisest course to follow would be to acquire the sufficient right-of-way at this time.
Now, I know that the questions that Susan asked have been asked before. What is the response to waiting 10 to 20 years?
Susan has some very real concerns. And I'm sure that many of the people who are watching this program, who live in similar situations as Susan, would express the same opinions. It's not a choice of Bo Sullivan or the commissioners or myself saying, let's hold it off for 20 years. As responsible officials, we have to respond to the recommendations of the professionals who have recommended that there's an absolute need for the project. Surely life at the Turnpike would be much simpler if we didn't have a widening project. Bo and myself and the staff would go on and conducting the day-to-day affairs of the Turnpike. This has placed an added burden on every member of the staff. So if it wasn't necessary, believe me, we would not be in it. Susan, in the difficulties that she has experienced in living along the Turnpike, has a right to expect that something is going to improve. If she is finally going to say, well, all right, I agree, as long as you tell me that my life along the Turnpike and the quality of my life is going to be better off than it is today. And that's a responsibility of the authority. The authority is a sensitive organization, and it's run by sensitive people. And they are committed to responding as adequately as possible to the concerns of the people who live alongside the Turnpike.
Okay, I want to come back to that in a minute. I want to turn to Ed now and ask you, Ed, where is the committee in its deliberations, and where do you think this is all going to go?
Mm-hmm. The committee's consultants, the traffic consultant, came back with a recommendation that after reviewing the Turnpike's data, we still have not gotten all of the data that we needed to do our own independent studies, or suggested additional data that should have been taken that our consultant wanted the Turnpike to do. Our traffic consultant thinks that 8 lanes will be required in the next few years, or 1 additional lane, and that a 5-lane extension, or 10 lanes total, that the Turnpike is proposing will be required in approximately 20 years, 17 years from the proposed date, which I think was 1984 or 85. In addition, the noise consultant has come back with a few innovative suggestions that we have discussed with the Turnpike, and we put them out on the table as a recommendation that if a 5-lane highway is built, or 10-lane highway is built, 2 additional lanes on each side, that the truck and car lanes be reversed. That we put the trucks in the center and the cars on the outside, and that would be obviously to take the noise as far away from possible to the homes that are adjacent to the Turnpike. Another proposal that he has recommended for study is to depress the outer roadway. The new roadway that is going to be built, the additional 2 lanes, should be lower than the present grade, which would then minimize the height of any noise mitigation. So we have proposed this to the Turnpike, and we're in the, right now in our next meeting, which will be the Thursday, September 11th, we will be recommending to the mayor and council our official committee of the position, and how they should proceed based on our recommendations. We found the Turnpike to be very willing to listen to us. There's been a much better dialogue than has been going on in the past, but we still have not gotten any concessions or any indication that the things I just discussed would be agreeable to them, although they've listened to us.
Let me come back to what you said earlier, Bill. I know that there are many people in the community who remember the last widening, and it's still a sticking point with them. They feel that the authority was insensitive to the concerns of East Brunswick, and a lot of people in the community spent a lot of time through volunteer efforts trying to stop that particular widening, or to get the Turnpike to do it differently in what they saw, and I think legitimately might be said to be a more sensitive way. What's different today?
There's many things different today. First of all, going back to that original widening in the area, there had been serious differences of opinion, serious misunderstandings. That situation resulted in a suit being filed by the concerned citizens of East Brunswick against the authority. The suit was settled for a sizable sum of approximately $360,000. I think that the ill feeling developed over a charge that the Turnpike refused to permit the noise barriers to be constructed on its right-of-way. Now, actually what had happened in the suit was that at the time of the settlement of the suit, and one of the reasons that a monetary settlement was arrived at is that several members of the concerned citizens group had believed that noise walls, noise barriers, would be the most effective means of protecting them from excessive decibels. There was another group, whether they were in the minority or not, I'm not aware, who believed that if every home in the area of the Turnpike could use the money to purchase an air conditioner plus acoustical drapes, that perhaps that would solve it as far as they were concerned. But anyhow, the monetary settlement was made. Once the monetary settlement was made, it then became a third-party action. In other words, then when the concerned citizens of East Brunswick came to the authority and said, we want to put up noise barriers, but we want to put them on your right-of-way. Well, in financing, and it's your own experience as well in your township, that when you borrow money from the private sector, you write a bond resolution or an indenture. And in effect, that resolution or indenture is a contract between you and the folks who loan you the money for your project. And in that contract, you agree to run your business in a certain fashion. One of the stoutest prohibitions in the bond indenture is to permit the use of the Turnpike right-of-way by anyone but the Turnpike Authority. And over the years, it was mistakenly believed that that was a crass decision by the Turnpike Authority, an insensitive one, and that we should have permitted the noise barriers to be erected. And actually, it wasn't. It was a legal decision.
In fact, to this moment, I believe that it was an arbitrary decision.
It was General Counsel who pointed out that no, you cannot permit anyone from the outside to utilize Turnpike right-of-way.
So what's different today?
Different today.
Why will this widening be different?
Well, first of all, I believe that the legal protection for citizens of the United States with regard to environment is much greater, far more substantial than it had been some 15 years ago when that other widening was completed. And I think that that obligation imposed upon the Turnpike makes the Turnpike Authority realize that, now, there's another difference here. We talked about federal highway standards on noise, on environment, et cetera. Actually, the Turnpike Authority, since it does not deal in tax funds, is not subject to the federal regulation. However, to indicate the Turnpike Authority's willingness to respond to the concerns of Susan and the other folks who live in proximity to the Turnpike Authority said, no, we want to be guided by a regulation. We want to respond to that. So I think those regulations, which were not in existence at that time, 20 years ago we widened the Turnpike, doubled the capacity from the 3-lane to the 6-lane. There wasn't a single public hearing held. There wasn't a single federal permit to be held. There wasn't a single environmental law to respond to. And in that 20-year period, society has progressed and it benefits all of us. Bo and I, as well as you and Susan and Ed. Society has moved forward into a position where the environment is a most important concern for anyone. And those are the differences between then and now.
Susan, the same people who have been critical of spending money to oppose the widening project, and by the way, it isn't tax money, it's money from the so-called host community benefits that we get by having Edgeboro landfill in the community, so that other towns are really paying for it. But those same people who feel that we shouldn't be spending any money say that, you know, folks like yourself, the Turnpike was there before you were, and you know, why is it that you, how is it you can feel that because the Turnpike wants to do something, you now object to it? Do you have a response to that?
Yes, I think a 6-lane highway is a livable condition, 90 feet away. I think you're turning 6 lanes into a 12-lane superhighway or 10 lanes, moving at 28 feet from homes. That is a big difference. And I don't think anybody counted on that happening, the road expanding. I know it came out of nowhere when I found out about it. And that I realized you were there first, but whether it was our planning department that planned wrong or whatever, I just don't think the conditions are there for that widening of that magnitude.
Bo, this whole question of the concerns of the nearby residents and neighbors of the Turnpike and so on, and the kinds of concerns and fears that Susan expressed. How do you respond to that?
I'm very sympathetic to Susan and her neighbors, and matter of fact, through this controversy, I've made a lot of good friends in East Brunswick, sometimes on opposite sides of issues. As you know, I've been to 2 town meetings here. I've visited with the people on Albert Avenue in Milltown. And, I think that the point is, when you talk about who was first, I don't think is as important as what is happening today and what are the basic needs of the community, the neighbors, and the Turnpike and the community. And we have to strike a balance. I have in my desk drawer a newspaper clipping from the early 1960s when Governor Hughes was the governor, and he made a proclamation that said, and certainly Susan and her neighbors may have relied upon this information, there'll never be a need to widen the Turnpike. We're going to build a parallel superhighway, parallel to it, that'll be free except for tax dollars, and that's going to be called Route 95. And all the extra traffic that the state is anticipating through its future growth and prosperity and development is going to go on Route 95. Well, Route 95 is, in fact, hasn't been built, is not going to be built. Both Governors Byrne and Kane traded in Route 95 for other federal funds to be used in completing Route 78 and 287 and the like. And really, by the stroke of a pen, they just took the sign, the red, white, and blue sign that says 95, and put it on the Turnpike. So here we are with a road that would have been fine with 6 lanes built parallel to it. Now, we're being asked to respond to that. We don't have the 6 lanes. We have to provide some additional space and efficiency for the commerce. We're trying very hard, I think, and sincerely, to be in sympathy with the citizens and working with the very good committee that Ed has and that Susan is on and the very fine experts that they've hired. It's been very interesting to me to learn. You know, I'm not a technical expert, but I'm learning through an interchange of information, a lot of details. Susan has become an expert in some of these things, and I'm impressed with that. I think sometimes you surprise yourself, Susan, with some of the things you've learned. Hopefully we can reach an accommodation whereby my obligation by statute and oath of office to provide a safe and efficient highway and provide for the future economic growth and prosperity of the state, where my commitment on that side can somehow balance with the citizens and with the Susan and her residents and the other members of Ed's committee.
Now, Susan made reference earlier to levels of service. I know from my planning board experience and this discussion that refers to, that's a traffic engineering term that tries to describe the amount of congestion, the way the traffic flows, and I believe they grade them from A to F, just like in school, although it's not quite the same scale. And Susan mentioned a level of C or B. Now, I know that the position of the authority is that you have to maintain a particular level of service. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, as a creature created by statute, our basic regulations and rules that we operate under are determined by what the law says when it created us. And that law, over the past years since our inception, has been determined to be level of service C, which is not an uncommon level of service for a toll road. It's a better level of service because we're through highway. We do not have barrier tolls. It's a better level of service than what a municipality or a county, or for that matter even a state road, may live with. Certainly on Route 18 we see days when we're at level of service F, but we're not really paying to get onto Route 18 or paying a toll when we get off.
Oh, believe me, we'd like to put toll booths and collect the revenue for East Brunswick.
Maybe we can make a deal.
On Ashborough Road, especially.
Yeah. So that level of service C provides freewheeling traffic with safe and efficient intervals. And intervals are very important because, as we all know, if a simple flat tire can cause a disastrous accident if the intervals are not there. In some areas, our traffic does degrade to levels of service D and F today, even this post-Labor Day period that we're going through now. Northbound in the morning, I'm sure you have plenty of residents that ride your buses out of the park ride and, for that matter, drive to work, are experiencing on the Turnpike levels of service at F. And it's our job to try to build a road with a 20-year lead time. 20 years is a standard lead time when you try to plan a road in advance. Plan a road with a 20-year lead time that'll provide level of service C to our patrons.
What about the people who say you shouldn't be adding pavement, but you should be putting in a monorail or some sort of mass transit?
Well, again, our mass transit system is the buses that drive on us. We do not have the statutory or bonding authority to build a mass transportation system. We also have, especially in this area, a parallel rail system in existence. That's a separate set of problems that exist for the people at New Jersey Transit. But the rails do exist. People have written to me and said, why don't you put rails down parallel to the Turnpike? And the answer is, the rails are there. They've been there for years. Perhaps we need some improvements. Perhaps we need more parking for those rails. But again, we say, we want to give you the opportunity. If you want to drive, drive. If you want to take the bus, we're going to move the bus through. And if you want to take the rails, that's fine with us too. But we just don't have the authority to build a monorail system on our road.
Ed, let me ask you, how far are we prepared to go in opposing this project?
Well, we have taken all the legal steps necessary to make certain that the proper federal agencies review this particular proposal. And it was through our initiation that the federal agencies did take this proposal in hand. We feel we've made an accomplishment there. Nobody likes to litigate anything. We feel that one of the best things that has happened from this ad hoc citizens committee is that we've established a dialogue, that the chairman of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, who has its home in this township, has been in this township 4 different times and is readily accessible. If we call him to have a meeting, he invited us to his office on several occasions, the mayor and the members of the committee. And we have a dialogue. And as long as we have a dialogue, we feel we want to continue this discussion to see if reasonable people can come to some adequate solution. I think he understands our problem. I think we are not sympathetic to his problem, and I think we still have some more places to go to discuss.
Susan, if we somehow knew that the widening was absolutely inevitable, what kinds of things do you think people who live along the roadway would be looking for?
I think the main thing I know I would be looking for is to have the trucks stay where they are, to have the truck lanes in the inside with barriers to cut down some of that noise. And then you could put your 2 car lanes next to it, if we have to, go with the 5 lanes with another barrier to cut down the car noise. That might be a livable condition. You're not taking the noisiest part of the traffic, your trucks, 62 feet out. And of course, the dangerous part of the traffic, you'd be leaving them where they are. That would probably be a very viable solution for us. We could live with that.
If I could just make a comment, I think one thing that's apropos of what Susan is saying that we're all should be involved in together is future restrictions on truck noise and truck pollution. Probably at the federal level, we can't do it at the local level, but certainly I think trucks have escaped a lot of the controls that have been placed environmentally on automobiles. There
are several people on the committee who feel that there are standards now that the truckers are not living up to, and they're not being adequately enforced.
Prior to my tenure at the Turnpike Authority staff really wrote the federal regulations on what used to be called singing tires, that really used to hum and create that continuous background noise. And it was the Turnpike staff that really got the federal government to outlaw the singing tires.
Well, I think let's shift from the immediate to a little bit longer term. Before I do that, I didn't ask anybody earlier, what is the volume of traffic on the Turnpike? How many vehicles do you service a day?
Monthly or annually?
Well, daily, monthly, whatever number you happen to recall.
Daily, we've been averaging almost 500,000 vehicles a day.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly higher day preceding a weekend or the day preceding a holiday.
And I understand that that has been growing at a fairly substantial rate. I mean,
Yes,
of
it
course,
has.
that's been one of the points of controversy between the township and the authority is which traffic projections do you use. But let's assume for the moment that your projections are the ones we'll use. What kinds of traffic volume increases have you been experiencing?
So we're witnessing a 7% increase at this time.
That's on top of 7% the year before that. We're maintaining a 7% compound annual growth. No one thinks that's going to go on forever. The project is planned and projected on a 4% growth figure, which we think is conservative for the near term. Where it's going to go in the year 2000, we could probably make a lot of bets if we really knew. But we see continuing growth, and we don't see, and this is not only our own ideas, but in working with the other transportation agencies in the region and also working with the other planning agencies in the state. We just know and that an awful lot of the farmland that's south of Interchange 9 has been purchased by developers already. There are still people farming it, but it's owned by developers. We know there's a very large project scheduled to go in at Interchange 8A. Receiving international publicity is what's referred to as the Princeton-Trenton Route 1 corridor, which is one of the fastest growing areas in the world, outstripping the Sun Belt and other places. So we're aware of all that happening. We don't know and cannot pinpoint exactly what that's going to do in the future to the Turnpike. But certainly, in my opinion, I think 4% growth is a very conservative number.
Where does it stop? As someone wrote to the Ledger early on in this, do we wind up someday with 87 lanes on the Turnpike?
Paving the whole state.
Or the state paved across? Where does it stop, and how do you limit it? If the authority takes the position and believes that in its charter is the demand to maintain a certain level of service, as traffic volumes increase, the only way to maintain that level of service is to add more lanes. And how do you get out? I mean, maybe it's true that we'll have 87 lanes someday.
I hope not.
But how do you see that evolving?
What I say, long range, there will be a point at which I think the population of New Jersey will come to a relatively stable number. I don't think we're there yet. We're currently at about 7.5 million people. At the 1980 census, we were around 7.3 million. So we're seeing some growth. And I think some of the tax law changes have a tendency to keep our seniors in the state now that they don't have severe inheritance tax penalties. I think we will see continued population growth probably at a very moderate level through the turn of the century. I'm not sure where it's going to go beyond there, but we will certainly, I feel, reach a point where population growth will stabilize within a very small number. The other thing I feel, and I think is very important for the Turnpike, not so much in this area, but especially in the northern area, I think one of the things that basically we need in New Jersey is an urban renaissance, a revival of the cities, the Newarks, the Pattersons, the Jersey cities, and Hobokens, and areas like that. As those areas come back and become more economically vital and vibrant, I think we'll start to see population move within the state, not necessarily grow. Hoboken, Jersey City right now are two good cases in point where people are literally moving back at all levels, all income levels. And I think as people tend to become more urban, they tend then to rely more on existing mass transit than they do, than we suburbanites do, who will get in our car to go to the store or travel to the shore or what have you. So I think that by forecasting our road project into the early part of the 21st century, 2004, 2005, I think that the future beyond that will require probably very moderate improvements. I hope also by then that we have better mass transit solutions than what we're facing with today.
Okay. I want to express my appreciation to all of you for being here. I think and I hope it's been an informative discussion, and I look forward to seeing those of you in the viewing audience for the next edition of About East Brunswick.